And so it's the last half hour of the show on a Thursday. And so we go from Lima, Peru to the Pacific Northwest. We go from PERU to the PNW. And find out what's going on in Major League Soccer, find out what's going on because there's some names that are being floated when it comes to off-season moves. We got off-season moves and roster moves to talk about around Major League Soccer as we get ready for the round of 8 in the playoffs. And for that, we bring in our buddy from Sounder at Heart and Pulso Sports, our buddy Niko Moreno, where it is Thursdays. Oh, and he's got stuff going on behind him with that monitor now. You're dialing it up, dude. Look at that.
What's going on there, John? SDH family, what's going on? Excited to be on here on a Thursday, of course. And yes, we're trying to play around with the backgrounds. I'm working on that other wall too. So, we're going to have multiple backgrounds here in a little bit, but just getting it dialed in all thanks to that SDH checks coming in nice and slow. You know what I mean?
Right there with you, brother. I can know exactly what you're talking about the slow checks coming. All right, a couple of things that we need to get into. I know we've got to get into the round of 8. I know that we've got to get into juice boxes and what you think about those matchups. But we got some players news to get into and player reports to get into, specifically a couple of the roster slots that are there in Seattle. There's interest from Liga MX teams and folks in Chicago. Teams have been making their end-of-season roster moves, and they can do that for the next 3 weeks. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, we could start there. There's been some developments that I haven't quite shared. Obviously, it's nothing that is going to get national headlines, but John Bell, he is a guy who I had reported had interest from Chicago. It could be a potential landing spot. A second team has come around, and they're actually in negotiations with John Bell, and is Austin FC. Which is, I think, a good fit for a guy like John Bell. Look, if John Bell brings anything to the table, is a guy that is defensively sound. He has versatility. He could play at left back. He could play center back. He's a guy that has a very high floor, and I think that for a club like Austin that last year, there were so many inconsistencies. Having a guy like that in the back line, experience, physical, a locker room guy, a guy that plays with the chip on his shoulder. I still remember the very first time I talked to John Bell after he felt like he was let go from San Luis in a almost unfair fashion. He thought he could have been there longer. So to me, that's a good fit, for a guy that is looking around the league, testing the free agency market. If there's a possibility to come back to Seattle, that'd be great for Seattle. But if not, I'm happy for John Bell that he is, checking his options out there.
And he also mentioned a couple days ago, and this is the first chance we've had to catch up with you about it, but you think that JP, Joao Paulo's time is done in Seattle?
Yes. So there's a couple of players that are very likely gone. One is Ryan Kent, whose option was not picked up. He's a guy that comes at a high salary, and unfortunately for Ryan Kent, his time here was plagued with injuries, and obviously that's something that is difficult to. You have a limited amount of time to prove what you got on the field. And I thought he did that sporadically. He wasn't as consistent and as dynamic and maybe as impressive as we might have initially thought that was going to go. But, he's a guy that was very reliable at times, and that he was a contributor and a guy who you could trust bringing in on the field. But at this particular time, and that's why Seattle not picking up the options, not surprising. What you got out of it didn't quite reflect the salary. So you don't pick up the option. You try to figure out if there's a way to bring him back, but he's likely gone. Paul Rothrock is the other one that I could almost say that I'm very sure that he will not be back, simply because he's looking at the open market. He's testing the free agency at this particular time. There just doesn't seem to be a situation where negotiations are close enough from what Paul Rothrock and his camp want to what the club, the Sounders, are willing to offer him. And that'd be a loss for the team for sure. Paul Rothrock has been a guy that you've seen it all, right, John? We've talked about it here. And it's not just change your jersey, your Messi jersey, for a Paul Rothrock. I mean, he's done it on the field. He's been productive. He's a guy that has all of the intangibles. He's a spark plug coming off the bench. He has the attitude. But I do believe that there's a limit on what he can provide in terms of that salary. And I think that's where Seattle's laying the line. They're saying, look, we really want you to come back. We appreciate everything you've done, but this is how much we're willing to pay. And if his camp is just a tad higher, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 more, at this particular time, there's no intent from Paul Rothrock's camp to come down from that expectation. So I think he's another guy that's likely going to be leaving. And JP, I think retirement is on the horizon for him. He's a guy that, look, he's put his heart and soul into his career. He left the ACL on the field for this Sounders team to get a CONCACAF Champions League title. He's been a locker room guy. He's been a mentor. He's a warrior. They call him El Maestro, some of the guys on the team, because he does have that IQ. He's a student of the game, right? He's always getting better. But the reality is that between Father Time, that's always undefeated, and a very rough career and injuries, his body, you could see it. It ached last season, and him getting back, it was just hard for him. Now he loves the game. So I think that there's still potential that he wants to continue to be a player and maybe go elsewhere if that's the case, or maybe take a real big pay cut and stay with Seattle. But right now, it just feels like there's going to be no resolution. Obviously, my reports were that his option was not picked up, and that's absolutely accurate. So there's two options. Either he goes elsewhere, tries to get what he's hoping to get out of a salary. He takes, I'm guessing, a pretty big pay cut, stays with the Sounders as a player, or he's talked about it at some point, maybe look into the coaching side of things, right? So can he be a Gonzalo Pineda or Andy Rose that, they go right off being players and get ready to go and be a assistant coach, and then eventually a head coach.
Yep. And so we keep an eye on what's going on there. But yeah, the Rothrock thing, we talked about it last week with especially the financials. And you're looking at Rothrock probably wanting 500,000-600,000, maybe as much as 800,000, and currently that would be like 8 times what he's currently making, because I think he's just making over 100, and so I think that would be a large demand if you're trying to keep a Paul Rothrock around, especially with all of the other roster decisions you have to make. I could see them possibly going somewhere in the middle, 400 to 500, but I don't know if Rothrock would want to go to the middle, and I think that he would probably want to max out while he can. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, as I said in previous shows, it might not seem fair, but I don't want to call it inflation and the tariffs or whatever. I really don't. I'm just kind of playing around with it. But the reality is that players that come from abroad that have other type of profiles, even if they are not as productive on the field, at times their salary is set at a certain place, that a guy like Paul, who came in as a walk-on through the back door, earned his spot, was able to be productive, he might take him a lot longer to get to that spot of that 700,000-800,000. And that's just the way of the game. And it might seem unfair, but that could go across the league. So, when he hits the open market, I wonder if in MLS there is a team that's willing to pay him what he expects to make, when, as I just mentioned, there is kind of that non-official baseline that all clubs kind of abide by. And for a guy that, again, he is a domestic player, he's a guy that kind of came into the scene pretty late, he might just have to take that 600,000 and then earn his way up to that 800, 900,000 at some point. Or maybe he goes out of MLS and there is a team that's willing to pay him what he wants to make.
Yep, you mentioned going out of MLS. Liga MX is interested in kicking the tires on Brian Gutierrez out of Chicago. And I'm intrigued about that one because we all know that they're going to come at you with the pocketbook, and it's going to be a decision that you got to make. And it's like, are you going? You staying? What are you doing? And you've got a couple of players that are going to be either leaving or going Liga MX, according to Tom Bogert. Monterrey has submitted the bid to sign Gutierrez. Once again, he had 11-4 last year. He just got his Mexican passport. You've also got a couple of easy transactions, I think, for San Diego, where they pick up options and you're like, yeah, no, that was a no-brainer. You pick up the option on Verhoeven, you pick up the purchase option on Luca Bambino. Those were two guys that were integral in your first year, and to me it was no-brainers to pick them up and keep them in-house, considering what they did, and also considering you lost out on Milan Olaski for whatever reason. He signed with Philly, and it's like they didn't come up on an agreement. It's like the loan was over. Hey, let's come up with something. Olaski's like, okay, here's my number. San Diego's like, here's our number. You can't agree, and so he gets shipped back overseas to his parent club. Long enough time to pack, basically, and then bring everything back over. Philly signs Olaski. We see what Olaski's done. I think San Diego learned their lesson in inking Verhoeven and Bombino after losing out, for whatever reason, on Milan Olaski. So they're keeping two dudes and not losing two more.
Absolutely. And they should have learned their lesson because, and that's a lesson that a lot of, new GMs can be hit with, because sometimes it feels like you're doing your job by protecting the salary cap integrity and saying, look, there's only so much I can do for you on this side. But when I look at Olaski's 500,000 plus that he's making in Philadelphia, to me, that's a steal. That's a steal for a guy at a caliber, a guy that had proven it to you on the field. And that's the other part that I don't understand. He did it, right? He came on a loan. He did it. But pay him his cash, man, especially because those type of goal scorers don't just come and go anywhere in any league. So it is difficult. I love Bambino. I think Bambino's a guy that had a monster season, right? A breakout season, a guy that I did not have on my bingo cards to have this sort of season. Went into the national team scene as well. So two-way player. That was absolutely a no-brainer. So I definitely do believe that there are some of these moves that, as you said, they are no-brainers. But sometimes when you hit the negotiating table, everything is fair. It can go absolutely anywhere.
Yeah, and it definitely did that with Olaski. A couple of other teams. You have until December 10 to figure out what you're doing. So you got 3 weeks left for the clubs that are still in the playoffs and everybody else. You still have until December 10 to figure out what you're going to do and what your renewals and your contracts are going to be looking like for next season. Orlando City, the purple team, has made their announcements. They declined options on Mercado, Shaq Muhammad, and Fabian Loyola. Cesar Arujo and Pedro Gallese out of contract. Negotiations with Robin Johnson and Kyle Smith, and a new contract with Wilder Cartagena. I mean, Gallese with his price point, that to me, no shock that you weren't going to renew his contract. But, Loyola would have been a decent option financially, but out of contract. Arujo, Gallese, and you're negotiating with Robin Johnson and Kyle Smith and Wilder Cartagena, you got a new deal. Early thoughts on what the purple team's doing?
They're playing it safe. And the Cartagena situation gives you both a team-friendly salary with the guy that is a workhorse and can do a little bit of everything. And you're getting rid of the guys that are the cost, or not getting rid of, but you are not tying yourself up to guys that just have the salary a little bit higher and that maybe have not been as consistent as you wanted to. Look, Araujo is a guy that I really liked, and he had one season that I thought he was unreal. He was on my MLS 11 at the end of the year, but then after that, he just couldn't quite keep it together. There was a lot of moments where you thought that he was going to be a cornerstone for this team, but he never proved it. You know, he wasn't an Ojeda that, man, that guy just came out to play, right? He wasn't even a Gillespie that at one point he was one of the leaders in his team. So that's exactly why I think that Orlando and Oscar Pareja specifically, who apparently has no fear of being let go, obviously, and they're giving him that the vote of confidence, and he's gonna just redo this team, reorganize it, and figure out what it is that didn't quite work last season. And I think one of those was the lack of dynamism from his center midfield. So they might go a different way than Cesar Araujo.
Yep, and you also have to keep an eye on Alex Freeman, and it's going to be a decision for that front office. You know that the purple team's going to want to keep him, but you also know that folks are going to be kicking the tires on Alex Freeman.
No, I think he's gone. There's just too much.
Okay.
There's too many rumors, let's call it. His name is everywhere. I make a call and his name is out there. I mean, you know, when I'm hearing about it, which, you know, I'm in the lower totem pole with all these sharks out there. But definitely he's a guy that all you have to do is just kind of open the window and you hear his name being called out by some European teams.
Alex Freeman.
Absolutely. And after you know, are a huge part of that red hot start for the UNSPS national team, and you score 2 out of the 5 that went into Uruguay. Yep. I mean, that gets you places. If there is a things as good marketing when it comes to being a soccer player, scoring 2 in Uruguay is top of the line, baby. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that I think will be out of there,
especially after the World Cup, because, you know, you're talking summer transfer window and end of the tournament, and you got to figure out, okay, what's your future with that 1 year left on his deal. Maybe it's that summer window, if he's still rolling with the national team, that you might hear some news with Alex Freeman. Nashville declined Acosta, Brugman, Eck, Julian Gaines, Tate Schmidt, Wyatt Meyer, and Joe Willis, which I thought was interesting. Probably looking hit him as maybe a lower price point. I don't know. Out of contract, Teal Bunbury, Taylor Washington, who retired at the end of the season, and Walker Zimmerman. So I'm thinking you're looking at price point for Willis and Zimmerman, and Bunbury. I'm thinking anybody that wants to chase after Bunbury is looking at price point, and the fact that I think Teal just had his 412th birthday. I think that's kind of what you're staring at with Nashville, I think.
Yeah, and Willis, you might be looking a lot of the almost a form of respect. His situation to me with Nashville right now is a lot like Stephen Fry. He was one of the originals for you, right? He has been a good goalkeeper. He's really honestly performed quite well. He wasn't a big name guy, but he performed like a big name guy. And I think that if you want to work on his salary and maybe bring him on and keep your options open, if there is a number 1 that you can go out there and get, and he could be your number 2, I feel like that is very similar to what the Sounders have here. Obviously very differently, because Stephen Fry is definitely an absolute legend for the club. And he could potentially be looking at the same thing, where he comes in at a much lower salary just to be the guy off the bench, and you allow Andrew Thomas to do his thing. So I feel like Nashville is going that route. I think Zimmerman's obviously absolutely gone. I think he'll go out there and get close to what he made last season elsewhere. He's just a big name. He's a big frame guy with a lot of the profile the teams are looking for, and they don't mind paying for that sort of center back. So I do think that he's the one guy that will be leaving. But I think for Nashville, this has to be a big rebuild year to get you a step closer to what I believe BJ wants out of this team, and it's just being more effective on the ball and being able to not allow teams to get games to get out of hand the way they did in the playoffs for this team. So I do believe that there's going to be a lot of movement in Nashville on that end.
All right, the third team is Portland. Contract options declined on Carballo, Christian Paredes, and Matias Rojas. Out of contract, Crepeau, Eric Miller, Hunter Salt, and Dario Zuparic. So now this means that the keeper, the keepers that you're keeping an eye on, pardon the pun, you're looking at Crepeau, Sean Johnson, Joe Willis. They're out there in the market right now, and if you're looking for a backup or a twos guy that you might have on a yo-yo, you could go out and chase after somebody like a Hunter Salt. But right now, Portland sends out Crepeau out of contract. So Crepeau, Willis, and Sean Johnson, and Gillespie. So you've got 4 dudes out there between the sticks that if you want to kick the tires and you think you can spend some money, you got dudes that you can look at.
Yeah. It's interesting because when Crepeau was taking over the job at Portland, I thought that was going to be a long-term thing, and it really doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I don't know if Gillespie is at this point in time an improvement off of Crepeau. So yeah, I honestly don't like any of those guys. If I'm starting a team and I really want to get going, maybe Pedro Gillespie on a very low number, and very low to his previous salary, of course. So maybe you're paying him 5, 6. I just don't know what he's asking for. And for all I hear, it's a lot more than that. And I'm just not willing to pay for that when it comes to a goalkeeper. To me, the biggest surprise when it comes to the Timbers is Phil Neville staying. I mean, I just feel like he hasn't done enough. He's been embarrassed in the last 2 years in the playoffs and in the last final games. I mean, he's gotten beat down, like played off the park. And I just haven't seen an improvement. And so when we talk about all these moves, the first thing that comes to my mind is I don't know who the coach is going to be next season. If it is Phil Neville, then I don't even know what he's going to want to go get, because in his time in Portland, I've yet to see what it is that he focuses on. Is it defense? Is it offense? Is it, I don't know. There is no identity to this Portland team. So that's the biggest question for me is Phil. And, is he the answer to what the Timbers want? Because I just don't see it right now. It's good for Seattle. I know a lot of fans. This is a true story. I have fans that, we've at times when I go drop off my daughter at Starfire, they're like, hey, man, let Phil Neville be in Portland. We would love to just keep the guy there so we can continue to beat that team down. So, there is that understanding that Phil might be dragging that team down.
All right, we got 4 matches to get into here this weekend. Vancouver, and this one is Saturday night late, 9:30 kick. Vancouver favored against LAFC at a plus 114. LAFC is a plus 200. 90-minute draws a plus 250. What do you think?
That's the game that I'll be looking for this weekend. There's everything to like about both teams. I think Vancouver is a team that, depending on how healthy they are, you could see the highest potential of that team specifically. LAFC has the guns, but Vancouver has the collectiveness. They have the cemented team behind the electric guy like Thomas Mueller. Son doesn't stay far behind, though. He's a guy that has that team rolling in all cylinders. But I like the balance, and I like the consistency and the ability to play off script that Vancouver gives you. I feel like LAFC needs the game to go a certain way. And I think that the biggest example for me is that first game against Austin in the playoffs, where things just didn't go their way. They got bounced off the ball. It was one bad miss, and then they just couldn't get it back. Vancouver, to me, just has more ways to stay in games like this. And that's why I'm taking Vancouver. I'm taking Vancouver nice and easy. I'm taking Vancouver.
Yep, you are not alone in that because of BC Place being a very, very tough place to play, and traveling up there always seems to be a bit of a pain in the butt. And it's just it's an odd home field advantage that Vancouver has on Saturday night. Sunday doubleheader, 5:00 in the afternoon. Messi and friends travel to TQL to take on FC Cincinnati. They are a prohibitive favorite, albeit on the plus side at a plus 120. 90-minute draws a plus 274. FC Cincinnati a plus 177.
Yeah, this one's close. And I've been doubting Inter Miami the entire playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to stop. And I'm not going to stop. I'm taking Cincinnati. I do believe that Cincinnati, if they got through a Columbus Crew team
Mm-hmm.
that had all the motivation, they had a phenomenal coach with a great game plan and enough quality on the field to match you up and put you against the wall at times. I think Cincinnati gets through Inter Miami. I don't think that Inter Miami has been in enough brawls. Brawls. I'm talking about brawls, John. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking about you're handling the game and Messi got off and he decided to just go full on Super Saiyan and he scores 3 or 4 goals. Brawls. And I think that you need that in order to beat Cincinnati. You just have to grind out games. They're going to put you in a restraining hold. They're going to occupy the midfield in a certain way. They're not going to allow Messi to have open space. They're going to be physical. To me, Cincinnati has the talent and the physicality to take down Inter Miami. So I'm taking Cincinnati. Yes, sir. Yes, I am.
Take
and
that.
watch me have to eat my words here next Thursday.
Oh man, plus 177. You'll take that too. And then 745, the nightcap, which probably means 755 or 757. Philly hosting NYC. NYC is a big underdog at a plus 281. They are missing some firepower because of injury that happened in the international window. 90-minute draws a plus 252. Philly's a minus 118. Do we even need to go any further?
Wow, I feel like I'm going all chalk here. I literally just realized that I got all number ones in my bracket here coming up. That is just not good. But look, I really like New York City. Really like what they had going on. Love Niko Fernandez. Like what they were doing in the midfield. But man, injuries just destroyed their possibilities. So I can't sit here in all honesty and tell anyone to take New York City FC when Alonso Martinez was the firepower at the end of that spear. I mean, he was their guy. He's the guy that put the ball in the back of the net. And Niko Fernandez is not going to be able to go coast to coast every game like he did against Charlotte and put the ball away in the back of the net. He can only do so much. And Andres Perea was another guy that I felt like was very important for this team, and losing him was just as bad as losing Alonso Martinez. So I think Philly with Coach of the Year Cornell, a group that can put it together, plenty of options of goal scorers. I think that they've improved defensively. I think Philadelphia just takes it, and I think this is probably the most locked game out of all of them so far, and that's simply because of injuries for New York City FC. If that was not the case, I'd be trying to figure out who I wanted to pick. But those two guys were just crucial for New York City FC.
Last one is going to be Monday Night Football, 10 o'clock Eastern, so 10-12. San Diego FC at the Murph Dragon, favored at a minus 167, going up against Minnesota at a plus 384. 90-minute draws a plus 301. I'm leaning more toward that draw because of how Eric Ramsey wants to go about things.
I'm leaning towards the draw as well. And that's the only way I'm not going to go chalk on this one, because there's a good chance that Minnesota wins that game out of PKs. But I do feel like Minnesota can withstand what Cincinnati throws their way. And look, this is obviously not going to sit very well here in the Pacific Northwest, because we're still salty over Minnesota getting the team out, eliminated. But the reality is that they're built for it. And although the Sounders kind of put together a very good blueprint on how to beat that system down, I do feel like this team is playing with a different type of mentality. I feel like they smell blood in the water, if you will, where it's like, man, we just beat a big team. And look, yes, they were the underdog, right? Sounders were the fifth seed, but when it comes to the hierarchy of MLS, they were, they were made guys. They're a top family, and you took them down. So you took him down in an awful game, and I thought that was pretty cool by Eric Ramsey when they eliminate Seattle. there's that video of him on the locker room where he's like, "Look, you guys play like shit." Really, I mean, obviously, I'm sorry about that. You guys play badly. You guys play
No,
poorly.
you can look. We've done E ratings in the past. Jarrett comes in, he gives us the E rating after about 15 seconds. It's all good. You can say whatever
Yeah.
you.
But yeah, he goes into it and he's like, "Look, we won and we're excited, we're happy, and you guys did it. Well, you guys played poorly and you guys still got through." And I think that's true. I really do believe that can really get a team going, saying, "Look, even when we play poorly, we can beat a team like Seattle. We can hold on and try to make life difficult for San Diego FC." Now, I do believe that they're going to need to do a lot more of the dark arts. I think they're going to have to slow the rhythm of the game. They're going to have to be very physical. There's going to have to be a lot of, hack a shack type of moments, so you don't allow this San Diego team to get over on you. But yeah, I like the draw, Minnesota San Diego.
All right. So, what else is going on with you this week at Sounder at Heart and Pulso Sports? Since you're not going to the Providence and Swedish campground and 5-minute oil change.
Well, that's the biggest question, man. I'm waiting for the Sounders to set up this end of the season presser, man. I feel like I cannot, reach to them anymore. They're probably like, man, this guy's gotta, just calm down. So it all depends on what's happening. It sounds like maybe next week the team will have that end of season presser. So we'll obviously have that on Pulso Sports. I do plan to do a couple of open spaces for the fans that have a lot of questions. They've been all over my DMs on moves and stuff. So I'm gonna do a couple on my personal X. I will put together end of the season roundtable as well for the Seattle Sounders specifically, of course. And then on Monday with Ari in Lobby's Coaches Kickoff, we will obviously break down the week that was in MLS. We'll look at this game, see how things played out. We're probably going to do a lineup builder for what the Sounders team could look like next year with what we know so far. So the guys that are staying, that we for sure know that are staying, we're going to try to figure out what would happen. What would be the scenario if you started next season with the guys that you do know are going to be here for this team. So go ahead and check that out on Love and Scorchers. And that's it.
As always, my friend, it's great to see you. Great to run through everything going on in Major League Soccer and chop it up as we get ready for the round of 8. As always, great to see you. Be safe. We'll catch up with you again next week. We've got to figure out, because Thursday is Thanksgiving next week. So we've got to figure out what your week is like Wednesday, Friday, and figure out how much time you're spending with family. So let me know if one day is better than the other next week, and we'll knock it out at that same 10:30 and 7:30. We'll knock it out on either Wednesday or Friday.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Wednesday for sure will be a much better day for me. Friday, I'm totally out.
You're with the fam on Friday, man. That whole weekend is gassed up for you.
Oh yeah, man. Kids coming back home and stuff. Got to be moving them around and stuff. So it's gonna be a busy week. So yeah, Wednesday works, and hopefully we have some more stuff to talk about. With, of course, not just the playoffs, but maybe some new information on moves and stuff from not just the Sounders, but MLS. I'm out there, man. I'm out there.
I know you are, and you sell yourself well short, and you undercut all the sources and everything you know. So next Wednesday, 6 days from now at 10:30, 167 and a half hours from now, we'll catch back up again. Be safe, and we'll catch up with you next week leading into Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, boss.